In this episode, your wedding team meet photographer Paco van Leeuwen.
Hi there, bridal couples to be.
Welcome to How to Get Married in Holland,
The ultimate wedding podcast of and about the Netherlands.
We, wedding ceremony experts, aka celebrants Daphne and Jasperin, share all ins and outs of getting married in our flat and fabulous country.
Enjoy listening.
Hi, Paco.
Hi, good
Paco
morning.
van Leeuwen Photography. Welcome to this special episode. It's all about you and your work. And for our listeners and viewers, could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, of course. My name is Paco van Leeuwen. I'm a 44-year-old wedding photographer from The Hague. I'm married to a beautiful Puerto Rican wife, and we have a 17-year-old son. And I can really relate to some of my couples that are doing international weddings because we got married in the Netherlands the official way, and then we got to Puerto Rico and did a wedding ceremony there. So I can really relate to these couples that struggle with or want to find how to get married in the Netherlands.
So Paco, how long have you been a photographer or at least a wedding photographer?
I think I picked up a camera for the first time about 18 years ago while I was traveling in Australia. And I borrowed just a mirror camera from my mother, still with a film in it. And I was trying to capture the beautiful landscapes there and the memories that I have there. And that was amazing. But when I saw the images, I was like, I could have done better. And then I started to learn more about photography, really raised my interest. And then slowly but surely I started doing more live music, which I love to go to with my wife. Brought my camera, people saw my images, and they started to ask me to come and photograph for them. And I got some money for that, invested in more camera gear, more schooling, and then I think about 12 years ago I did my first wedding.
So you started with something else?
Correct. Yeah, just as an interest, as a hobby, and it started growing from there. As I told you before, I invested in more equipment, doing more events, and actually, the first couple that asked me to photograph their wedding saw the pictures of an event that I photographed, and they loved how I captured moments. So they contacted me. I hadn't done any weddings whatsoever. So I was actually pretty shocked, like, oh my God, like a wedding. I had no idea and never thought about doing it. But they had a very catching story to me and I just couldn't resist. And I did their wedding.
And were you hooked on weddings, or how did that develop?
Well, it's actually a sad story because the couple that I photographed, my first wedding couple, she was chronically ill, but they still wanted to get married, even though her sight was only a year or two that she still had left. And when they saw my images that I took, and it made such a deep impact on them, I knew that I wanted to do more with this because it's so precious what you can give as a photographer to couples. I knew that this was my calling.
You wanted to share the moments of the day.
Exactly, because you get lived on a day. Everything goes so quick, and just by looking at an image, like the whole day can come back and you relive that moment with your friends, with your family, the things that have been said. It's such a wonderful compliment, what you can do for clients.
It's like a visual memory, right?
For sure. And it just brings you back straight to the day. Even when I grab my own wedding album or the picture in the back, it just takes you back and to those beautiful, beautiful times. And I wish that for everyone.
Yeah, and you do so with the flair of a fashion designer, I read on your website, and the resourcefulness of an architect. Can you
Yeah.
explain?
Well, you always try to make people look their best. So I use the architecture, the light, the everything that's there, and then I try to read moments and capture people at their most truest self. Like I want to see that twinkle in their eye, that little touch with hands, or yeah, I just try to combine everything into the best image. And yeah, it's really a documentary style. That means I try to be in the background and let the people interact with one another how they normally do. And if they don't look at me, that's perfect, because then you see the true emotions.
You're like the fly on the wall.
Yeah, or ninja. I've been called before. Like you're everywhere, but we haven't seen you. So yeah, even with the ceremony and Jasperin, we did a wedding together. When those clients saw the album and they saw how close I got during the ceremony, but they mentioned to me like, we didn't notice you. It's like, that's the best thing you can tell me. That's the most beautiful compliment. And because then you're right in the action.
Yeah. But going back to that particular wedding, and that will be a reference for more weddings, I guess, you don't work alone.
Most of the time I come with a second shooter, and it helps for me to photograph the bride in the morning, and the groom will be photographed by my colleague, and then the rest of the day we'll photograph together from different angles, helping out with a photo shoot or with lighting equipment, or yeah, it's just a really good investment for your wedding day to have a second photographer there.
So that is not standard. Couples can choose.
For sure, yeah. It's always up to the wishes of the client. The couples can say, yeah, we just want one photographer. Sometimes with small weddings, they choose for this. But most of the time, like weddings over 8 to 10 hours, most couples see the benefit of having another photographer there.
You can capture even more details, I can imagine.
Details, moments, because yeah, if you work by yourself, yeah, you only have one camera in your hand, and there could be something happening that's really worth capturing during the first kiss. But then you just have one camera. Do you shoot the kiss or do you shoot the tears? If you cannot layer them in one image, yeah, you have to make a choice. And
It's the different angles that you want to capture.
Yeah, and moments and people, and yeah, it really is a benefit to having two photographers there.
Yeah. And speaking of choices, how do you make sure you capture that perfect moment? Because you almost need to be psychic to feel it when it's coming, right? And then be ready to capture it with your camera.
Yeah, you really have to be intuitive. You have to be in the moment. You have to be listening into what the couples are saying to one another. You have to get open, really open, and let everything in. So psychic, observant, just use your emotions, and of course it comes with experience. But yeah, it's a sixth sense, if you want to call it that.
And if a couple, contracts you, do they get a choice in the type of photographs that you take? I mean, some photographers have. I find these days there's sort of a certain style that you see in lots of pictures, wedding pictures, that has to do with filters, I guess. Is that something that you go along with the wishes of your couple, or you say, no, this is me, Paco, this is my style, this is how I work, and this is the type of work I produce?
I believe an artist works best if you let him do what he's best at.
Yeah.
And if you want to change that, then I don't think it's a good match. If you want to have like the vintage style photography, go with the vintage style photographer. If you want more bold colors, more contrast, using more lighting to really highlight the couple, those moments, then I'm more your photographer. But I really believe that you should choose what best fits your needs. Same as anything else, like you choose the wedding dress that best fits the day, etc. It's really personal, and I don't believe in changing anyone quality for the day.
And for that matter, have you ever said no to a couple because they wanted something else than what you like to make?
I'm really honest to my couples, and I tell them, like, hey, this is what you're getting yourself into when you hire me. Like, I get close, I lay on the ground, I climb in trees, but you don't see me. I'm not disturbing your day, but yeah, this is me. This is what I'm best at, and I ask them to trust me. And sometimes it's not a good fit, and that's why I always have an hour and a half, 2 hour meeting prior to get to know each other. And then based on that, I can make a quote for them. But they also know, hey, this is Paco van Leeuwen. We like it, or we rather have someone else. And that's also perfectly fine if they choose someone else. I've had it once that we were both like, I don't think this is a good match. And actually, because of that, I was honest to them, they recommended me to someone else.
Oh, that's a compliment. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And during such a discovery meeting, if you will, what are the best questions a bridal couple can ask you as a photographer?
Oh, that's a tough one. What can they ask me? I have a lot of experience like with weddings, and most of the time we talk about timeline and how long you need for certain images, because sometimes clients, couples, they don't know how long something takes. And I always advise them, for instance, take an hour and a half at least for the getting ready moments. It's a very good way to feel comfortable with me around you in your space, and also for your loved ones. Usually they're getting ready. To get really comfortable with someone with a camera in your space around you.
Well, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Because that's early on in the day, and then for the rest of the day, you're comfortable with that person being in your space, really.
Precisely. Yeah. And that's also a reason why I advise a second photographer for the groom, because also the groom needs to get comfortable, and the groomsman and the father maybe, or who's ever there, and then most of the VIPs, like the most important people around, are used to a photographer and not camera shy anymore.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite type of couple?
Yeah. Actually, the couples that forget about me are the best. That are really into each other, into their friends, into their families. If they forget about me, you get the best images and the best results. It doesn't need to be perfect. The dress doesn't need to be perfectly laid on the floor all the time, or I like those imperfections. And if people dare to let go of it, you get the most purest form of photography.
So the imperfection makes the perfection, really.
Exactly. Yeah. And that makes it memorable. And those are the things that you remember from your wedding day. Oh, you remember that glass of wine that fell over the table. Everyone laughs. And yeah.
And ever experienced a dangerous situation during a wedding, or a funny story you can share with us?
Well, actually, one time there was one. I don't know the English name for it, when they cut the wine bottle, sabreren.
Oh, sabreren, yes, yeah, with a sword.
Yeah.
It's a very adventurous way of opening a bottle of champagne.
Correct. Yeah. And the bride was standing right next to the groom on the side where he was like.
Ooh.
So I was like, maybe switch sides. So that was probably the most dangerous thing that I've encountered. But other than that, no, pretty safe.
Yeah.
I was just thinking something totally different. You're there on the day, and then you leave and you go home. But then for you, a lot of work starts.
Actually, the most work.
Exactly.
Yeah. Roughly around 5 times as long as that the day is. So, for instance, a day of 10 hours will take me 50 hours in total for the whole wedding.
Right.
You're shooting a couple thousand images. My second shooter shoots a couple thousand images, because we're shooting through the moments, and you have to see every moment leads to a peak, and then the peak goes away. So we're shooting, and then we choose the best 2 images from that moment.
Okay.
So that takes, sometimes you're really like, oh, that person looks better, but then the next image, the other person looks a bit better, and you just try to find what captures that moment the best.
And
then
do you make the first selection, Paco?
Yeah, I do everything myself. I gather all the images, I sync them with time. Then I'm gonna, that's called culling, call all the images, and then the editing by hand starts. Like usually 6, 7, 800 images,
Wow.
editing by hand. Of course, you have a filter setup, but it's not a one-click thing. You still have to adjust sliders and contrast and dodging, burning, and yeah, there's a lot of work per image, and then the album design starts. So there's a lot of work afterwards, for sure.
And people don't, I think people are not aware of that so much. They think, oh, nice photographer during the day, and then, just pop them in an album and that's it. But that's just not the case at all.
Exactly. Yeah. And imagine people try to make albums from their holidays themselves, and it takes years because they just cannot choose. So what I do from the, let's say 800 images, I choose 100, 200 images that best represents your day. And then I'm going to start building the album. I'm going to send you all the images, let's say 800, plus an album preview. And with those 2, you can still make alterations to the album. Yeah. So the couples have to do some work as well to make it perfect.
Yeah, but then the album is really them.
Exactly. Yeah. Because I can put an uncle in there. It's great that he was there, but they don't need him this big.
Yeah.
They for instance, group shots, they can choose their shots that they want to have in there. Or sometimes I put in details and they're like, no, we don't need the details. We rather have more people in there. Or it's really tailor-made, and it's going to be their album, their heirloom.
So going back to your wedding and your pictures, did you get the pictures that you envisaged of your wedding?
Yes, and better.
And better.
Oh wow!
Because I let him do his thing, and like I mentioned earlier in this meeting, people are best when they're comfortable, not under stress. Yeah. So I really put all my faith in him, and I knew that he could do what he's best at, and yeah, he got images, and I was like blown away. Even as a photographer myself, I was like, how did he do this?
Yeah,
amazing. Yeah.
So you have really high standards.
Yeah. That's why I also I was working at the time with one of the best photographers in the Netherlands. I was learning with him, shooting with him, and yeah, I just had full confidence in that he could photograph our wedding, and he outdid himself for sure.
Yeah. So if I understand correctly, being a photographer, being a professional photographer is all about the technique, of course, the knowledge you have, but also creativity, resourcefulness, that sixth sense you talked about, and all combined with really being in the moment.
Yeah, wow, perfectly summed up. I couldn't have said it any better myself. Yeah, really. Yeah, it all comes together at the moment, and again, like I said, if I need to think about shooting a certain style, my mental bandwidth is going somewhere else instead of being in the moment and letting all your knowledge and your techniques and come together and just let it flow.
So if you would have to give our listeners or viewers one top Paco van Leeuwen tip, what would that be? In their search for a photographer, what would you recommend?
See images and from different wedding photographers and see if you get an emotion with it. If you see the images and you feel like you're actually there, that you feel that emotion come up, that if you see the bride's tears or the groom's tears or mother's tears, that you're like, wow, blown away, or you get emotional, or it really has to grab you. Yeah.
That we have in common, it's all about emotion.
exactly.
our jobs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
And of course the type of photography, the style matters too, because my style characterizes itself with sometimes I use flashes or really direct, harsh sunlight. There's certain photographers that like to shoot more in the shade because it's a little easier. I like to use the most difficult light to my advantage to really bring everything together. And Yeah.
Talking about light, I remember that when we worked together last year, we were
Right.
in a very, it was a sunny day, and the couple were sitting with their backs to huge windows where the sunlight was just flooding in.
I know.
Is
It
that
was
the
difficult.
challenge you like to work with, or would you just recommend couples talk to a photographer also about the setup of a room where they get married?
Sometimes it's good to talk about the setup, but first and foremost, it's the client's wishes. I have to
Yes.
make it work. And no matter how difficult,
Yeah.
it's my job to make the best out of it. I
Yeah.
can say it's going to be tricky. I told them, if you sit in the middle during this day with the harsh sunlight coming in,
Yeah.
I need to use some flashes to balance the light out. And I just educate them. They didn't mind. They were like, you do your thing. We trust in you. We've seen images from this location before that you took, and we love it. So just go. But it is one of the most difficult locations to sit with your backs towards light where it's really flooding in. You got the yellow lights above in the ceiling. It's really tricky.
So that's why it's important to hire a true professional.
I believe so. Yeah. It's professionals make things look easy because they practice it for years and years and years. And you're like, oh, it's just picking up a camera and taking a shot. I can do this. But there's a lot more that comes to it.
And that's all you bring, Paco.
Yeah.
Invest in a professional. I think that's the conclusion again today.
Yes,
It's
is.
worth it for a lasting memory.
Definitely. And I really see that also when you did the ceremony, Jasperine, like all the emotions. So working with a good professional that really takes the time in getting to know the clients, getting those personal stories out. I've never seen so many tears and laughter during a ceremony at that wedding that we just spoke about. Like, it was amazing. I saw all the images back. I was like, I think everyone shed a tear there.
Then
That's
it's really a cooperation.
It's teamwork.
True. It is.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Paco, for your time, and it was lovely to have you on our show. And,
it was fun.
We'll make
so
sure
much for inviting me.
to integrate all your details in the show notes. So do check it out.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And for our listeners, talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to How to Get Married in Holland.
We look forward to share more about organizing your wedding day in the Netherlands in the next episode.
Hit the subscribe button so you won't miss anything.
Any questions in the meantime?
Please ask wedding celebrants Daphne or Jasperin. You can find us, plus the show notes, on Instagram.
And if you love this podcast, please leave a review.
It gives us a higher ranking, so more fun international couples with Dutch wedding plans will be able to find us.
Until next time.